In the dark tapestry of the 20th century, marked by the shadows of war and ideology, lies an enigma shrouded in the disturbing symbols of Nazi Germany. These symbols, rooted in ancient heritage, yet perverted into emblems of hate and oppression, offer a chilling depiction of the rise and reign of the Nazi regime. Central to this sinister iconography is the swastika, a symbol that dates back over 3,000 years and spans diverse cultures, from the ancient Indus Valley to the realms of Greco-Roman empires. However, in the hands of Adolf Hitler and the Nazi Party, this benign symbol was perverted, rotated 45 degrees, and transformed into a menacing emblem of Aryan identity and German nationalism. Officially adopted in 1920, the swastika became synonymous with terror and genocide. Equally disturbing is the Totenkopf, or death's head, a symbol tracing its history to 18th century Prussian military units. It assumed a ghastly new significance within the ranks of the SS, symbolizing unwavering loyalty unto death. The Blutfahne, or blood flag, stained with the blood of Nazi supporters during the failed Beer Hall Putsch of 1923, emerged as a sacred relic, epitomizing martyrdom and unity in the Nazi cause. The design of Nazi uniforms, conceived by artists and designers like Hugo Boss and SS Oberfuhrer Karl Diebitsch, exuded a fearsome elegance. With stark colors, sharp lines, and intimidating insignia, these uniforms were designed to project power, discipline, and superiority. In the haunting words of Victor Klemperer, a Jewish scholar who survived the Holocaust, words can be like tiny doses of arsenic. They are swallowed unnoticed, appear to have no effect, and then, after a little time, the toxic reaction sets in after all. This chilling reflection mirrors the insidious nature of symbols and propaganda in the Nazi apparatus. Can we ever disentangle these symbols from their dark past? Join us as we delve into the twisted history of Nazi symbols, exploring their origins, their transformation, and their enduring impact on the world. Welcome to the Diary of Julius Caesar. The swastika through time, a symbol's journey from ancient roots to modern misappropriation. The swastika, a symbol that stirs deep emotions, has a history as intricate as its design. It is a tale that spans thousands of years, traversing continents and cultures before its infamous association with the Nazi regime. This journey of the swastika, from a symbol of goodwill to one of tyranny, is a stark reminder of how symbols can be reinterpreted and repurposed throughout history. Our story begins not in the 20th century, but possibly as far back as the Neolithic era. The earliest known swastika motifs, simple yet striking in their geometry, have been unearthed on artifacts dating back to 3000 BCE. In the ancient city of Troy, archaeologist Heinrich Schliemann discovered swastikas in the ruins, linking the symbol to ancient Indo-European cultures. From the Indus Valley civilization to ancient Greece, the swastika was a common sight, etched on pottery, coins, and temples. In Sanskrit, the term swastika translates to conducive to well-being, reflecting its use as a symbol of auspice and prosperity. In Hinduism, Buddhism, and Jainism, the swastika held a sacred status, representing eternal life, the sun's movement, or the footprint of deities. It adorned the walls of the Ajanta caves in India, a UNESCO World Heritage Site, and appeared in the intricate carvings of ancient Buddhist temples in China and Japan. Its arms, pointing in 4 directions, symbolized stability and groundedness, resonating with the religion's teachings. In Europe, the swastika was embraced by the Greeks, who called it a gammadion, due to its resemblance to 4 Greek letter gammas, and the Celts, who featured it in their ornamental art. Even early Christians used the swastika, visible in the Roman catacombs, where it symbolized Christ's victory over death. The swastika's narrative took a drastic turn in the early 20th century. It was in 1920 that a fateful decision by Adolf Hitler, influenced by the works of Austrian occultist Guido von List, led to the swastika's adoption as the emblem of the National Socialist German Workers' Party, commonly known as the Nazi Party. Hitler, in his book Mein Kampf, described the new flag design as a red flag with a white disc in the center and a black swastika in the middle. This marked the swastika's transformation into a symbol of Aryan identity, a concept steeped in racist ideology and pseudoscience. Under Nazi rule, the swastika became synonymous with a regime marked by unspeakable atrocities and the Holocaust. The black swastika, set against a white circle and a red background, became one of the most recognizable and feared symbols worldwide, visible on banners at the Nuremberg rallies and emblazoned on the uniforms of the SS. Its perversion from a sign of good fortune to one symbolizing hate and oppression was stark and rapid, a change observed by the world with horror and dismay. In post-war Germany, the swastika and other Nazi symbols were outlawed by the Allied Control Council in 1945, a testament to their powerful and painful legacy. Today, while the swastika is still revered in many Eastern religions, its Western perception remains overshadowed by its dark past in the 20th century. However, understanding its deep and varied history is crucial to contextualizing its use and misappropriation. The tapestry of tyranny, delving deeper into the design of Nazi uniforms. In the annals of history, the uniforms of the Nazi regime stand out for their chilling symbolism and meticulous design. Originally inspired by paramilitary units like the Freikorps, volunteer units composed of World War I veterans, the Nazi uniforms began to take a distinctive shape in the early 1920s. Notably, Adolf Hitler, in his infamous autobiography Mein Kampf, 1925, emphasized the importance of uniformity in creating a sense of unity and identity, a principle that would later define the Nazi aesthetic. Notably, Hugo Boss, now a renowned fashion brand, was contracted in 1932 to produce these uniforms. This involvement in their design incorporated traditional military aesthetics with distinct Nazi elements, showcasing the regime's blend of order and terror. Boss's designs streamlined the Nazi image, embedding it with a sense of authoritarian efficiency. The black SS uniform, introduced in 1932, is perhaps the most iconic. Its designer, SS leader Heinrich Himmler, and graphic designer Karl Diebitsch, was influenced by the esoteric and mystical elements that subtly found their way into the uniform's design. The Totenkopf, death's head insignia on the cap, for instance, was a nod to historical hussar regiments and signified loyalty unto death. The SS uniform's stark black color was a radical departure from traditional military aesthetics and was intended to convey authority, fear, and a sense of elitism. By 1938, over 240,000 SS uniforms had been produced, a testament to the SS's growing power. In contrast, the Sturmabteilung brown shirts, sourced from World War I surplus, originally meant for German colonies in East Africa, were a symbol of the Nazi Party's street-fighting roots. The choice of brown was both practical and symbolic, representing the earth and the blood and soil ideology of the party. Ernst Röhm, the SA's early leader, often boasted about the simplicity and practicality of these shirts, seeing them as a unifier for the working class. The Luftwaffe, under Hermann Göring's direction, had uniforms that were a mix of pragmatism and grandeur. Göring's own uniform, often adorned with medals like the Pour le Mérite, reflected his flamboyant personality. The Luftwaffe uniform's distinctive blue-grey color was a deliberate homage to the Imperial German Air Service, of which Göring was a veteran. By 1940, the Luftwaffe had grown to over 1.5 million personnel, each donning this uniquely styled uniform. The Kriegsmarine maintained a more traditional naval style, though with unique features like the golden yellow insignia. Admiral Erich Raeder, a key figure in the Navy, was often seen in his meticulously designed uniform, which represented the Kriegsmarine's blend of tradition and Nazi ideology. The Navy's preference for the double-breasted jacket was as much about aesthetics as it was about functionality at sea. The Wehrmacht's field grey uniform was a study in military efficiency. The M36 tunic, introduced in 1936, was practical for combat and reflected the no-nonsense approach of the German army. Generalfeldmarschall Erwin Rommel, the Desert Fox, was often pictured in this uniform during his North African campaigns, epitomizing the Wehrmacht's image of martial prowess. Each branch's array of medals and badges was not just for show, but a crucial part of Nazi propaganda. The Iron Cross, for instance, was a carryover from Imperial Germany, but was reimagined by the Nazis to foster a sense of continuity and martial tradition. The Knight's Cross, introduced in 1939, was awarded over 7,000 times during World War II, becoming a symbol of valor and heroism in Nazi Germany. The Hitler Youth uniforms mirrored the SS's style, but were designed to indoctrinate the youth. Baldur von Schirach, the youth leader of the Nazi Party, famously said, "These boys and girls enter our organizations at 10 years of age, and often for the first time get a little fresh air. After 4 years of the young folk, they go on to the Hitler Youth, where we have them for another 4 years. And even if they are still not complete National Socialists, they go to labor service and are smoothed out there for another 6 or 7 months. And whatever class consciousness or social status might still be left, the Wehrmacht will take care of that." Shadows of the Skull, the SS Totenkopf's ominous legacy. In the annals of history, few symbols stir as much immediate recognition and dread as the SS Totenkopf, or Death's Head. Initially, a symbol of elite cavalry units in the German Imperial Army during World War I, these units donned the skull and crossbones as a badge of courage, signifying their readiness to face death head-on. Historical records suggest that these units wore the Totenkopf on their helmets and uniform accessories, believing it would instill fear in the hearts of their enemies. However, the emblem's significance underwent a sinister transformation in the 1920s and 1930s. The SS, under the command of Heinrich Himmler, a man deeply intrigued by occultism and ancient Germanic mythology, adopted the Totenkopf in 1929. Himmler envisioned the SS as an elite group above the law, bound only to Hitler and the Nazi ideology. The skull, stripped of flesh, became a symbol of this detachment, representing the SS's commitment to execute orders without moral consideration. The Totenkopf was prominently featured on the SS uniforms, specifically on the right collar tab and on the peaked caps of SS officers. This emblem became most infamous for its association with the SS Totenkopfverbände, the units tasked with running the concentration camps. Survivors often recalled the chilling effect of this symbol. Their presence in concentration camps like Auschwitz, Dachau, and Treblinka, where over 1.1 million people were killed, made the Totenkopf a symbol of terror for the prisoners. Primo Levi, in his memoir If This Is a Man, described the psychological impact of the SS insignia, noting how it represented a systematic dehumanization. The design varied slightly over the years, with early versions featuring a more detailed skull, while later iterations adopted a simpler, more stylized form. The Totenkopf was not merely decorative, it was a potent symbol of the SS's role as the uncompromising enforcers of Nazi policy. In Nazi propaganda, the Totenkopf extended beyond the SS uniforms. It appeared in recruitment posters, featuring phrases like, "You too can join the Death's Head units," aimed at enticing young men into the SS ranks. Interestingly, the Totenkopf's use extended beyond the SS to other parts of the German military, particularly the panzer tank units of the Wehrmacht, the regular army. These units adopted the symbol as a badge of honor, indicative of their breakthrough role on the battlefield. Even in the final days of the Third Reich, as Allied forces closed in on Berlin in 1945, the Totenkopf remained a symbol of defiance among the SS. The Battle of Berlin, marked by brutal street fighting, saw SS units, identifiable by their Totenkopf insignia, engaged in a futile but fanatical resistance. Their last stand in the ruins of the Reich Chancellery became the final chapter in the Totenkopf's wartime story, a symbol of unwavering, albeit misguided, loyalty to a doomed cause. Following World War II, the Allied powers moved swiftly to dismantle the symbols of the Nazi regime. The Totenkopf, alongside other Nazi insignia, was outlawed in many countries, an attempt to eradicate the visual reminders of the regime's terror. Today, its display is often associated with neo-Nazi groups, and it remains a powerful symbol of hate, outlawed in countries such as Germany, where public display of Nazi symbols is illegal. Soaring ambitions, the Reichsadler's evolution in Nazi iconography. The Reichsadler, or imperial eagle, a symbol steeped in historical grandeur, was co-opted and transformed by the Nazi regime into a potent emblem of their power and ideology. Its journey from an ancient Germanic icon to a symbol of Nazi Germany encapsulates a narrative of cultural appropriation and political symbolism. The eagle has been a symbol of power and majesty for millennia, with its roots in the Roman Empire, where it was a representation of Jupiter, the king of gods. This symbol of imperial authority was adopted by the Holy Roman Empire, and subsequently it became a heraldic mainstay in Germanic territories. The Reichsadler, as it was known in these regions, evolved through various forms, each reflecting the political realities of the time. With the dissolution of the Holy Roman Empire in 1806 and the subsequent rise of the German Empire in 1871, the eagle continued to be a central symbol of German unity and imperial ambition. It was during the Weimar Republic, 1919 to 1933, that the eagle started to lose its imperial associations, becoming more a symbol of the German nation than of an empire. However, the Nazi rise to power in 1933 marked a radical departure. The Reichsadler was redesigned in 1935 under Hitler's directive, transforming into an aggressive bird with pronounced talons, grasping a swastika encircled by a wreath. This new design, credited to graphic artists like Ludwig Hohlwein, was no mere aesthetic change. It signified the regime's aggressive ambitions and totalitarian grip. This menacing eagle quickly permeated every facet of Nazi Germany, becoming a ubiquitous emblem of state power. It adorned everything from official documents and military regalia to public buildings and monuments. Notably, the Reichsadler was prominently featured at the Nuremberg rallies, where it towered over mass gatherings, symbolizing the state's omnipresence. These rallies, meticulously documented by filmmakers like Leni Riefenstahl, showcased the Reichsadler as a centerpiece of Nazi pageantry. The Reichsadler's adaptation by the Nazis was met with both awe and fear. It became an icon of German militarism and expansionism, especially during World War II. For instance, the eagle was prominently displayed on the uniforms of the Wehrmacht, the unified armed forces of Nazi Germany, symbolizing their role as enforcers of the regime's will. The Luftwaffe, or Air Force, also featured the eagle, representing the soaring ambition and technological prowess of Germany's aerial warfare capabilities. Beyond its use in military and governmental contexts, the Reichsadler permeated everyday life in Nazi Germany. It appeared on German currency, with coins issued in the 1930s and 1940s featuring the eagle and swastika. It was on stamps and even everyday items like cutlery and stationery, serving as a constant reminder of the regime's presence in every aspect of life. This ubiquity of the eagle symbolized the totalizing nature of Nazi rule. The Reichsadler's use as a symbol of Nazi power came to an abrupt end with the fall of the Third Reich in 1945. Post-war Germany saw a systematic removal of Nazi symbols, including the Reichsadler, as part of the denazification process. Today, the display of the Nazi version of the eagle is prohibited in Germany, reflecting the nation's ongoing efforts to confront and atone for its past. The emblem of power, unraveling the mystique of Hitler's personal standard. Adolf Hitler's personal standard, a symbol that embodied his absolute authority and the overarching ideology of the Nazi regime, was not merely a flag, but a potent emblem of totalitarian rule. Introduced in 1935, this standard became an icon of Hitler's presence and a visual representation of his power over Nazi Germany. Crafted with meticulous attention to detail, the standard bore the iconic colors of the Nazi Party, red, white, and black. At its heart was a gold Nazi Party eagle, a reinterpretation of the historic Reichsadler, symbolizing Germanic strength and imperial aspirations. This eagle, with its wings outstretched, was set against a vivid red backdrop, clutching a wreath of oak leaves encircling a swastika. The oak leaves, a traditional German symbol, spoke of endurance and strength, while the gold color imparted a sense of grandeur. The flag's design was a deliberate fusion of historical symbolism and Nazi ideology, intended to elevate Hitler's status to that of a quasi-mythical leader. The flag was omnipresent in Nazi Germany, adorning buildings, military parades, and significant Nazi events. It was a standard feature on Hitler's personal car and on the Führersonderzug, his armored train named America in 1940. This train, a fortress on rails, was more than a mode of transport. It was a moving symbol of Hitler's command, carrying him to various fronts during the war. This standard became a ubiquitous presence at events graced by Hitler. Whether at the Nuremberg rallies, which drew hundreds of thousands, or during his speeches at monumental venues like the Berlin Olympic Stadium, the flag was a constant fixture. Its presence at Hitler's mountain retreat, the Berghof, was particularly noted by contemporaries and visitors. The flag's raising at the Berghof signaled Hitler's presence, a visual affirmation of his unchallenged rule. One notable instance of the flag's use was during Hitler's visits to occupied territories. For example, when Hitler visited Paris in 1940 following the successful invasion of France by German forces, his standard was hoisted at key locations, signifying his personal triumph and the reach of Nazi influence. The elements of the flag's design were steeped in Nazi symbolism. The swastika, central to the flag, had been transformed from an ancient symbol of good fortune into an emblem of Aryan identity and German nationalism. The eagle, a recurring theme in Nazi imagery, was intended to create a link with Germany's imperial past, reinforcing the regime's claim to historical and cultural legitimacy. As World War II progressed and the tide turned against Nazi Germany, the visibility of Hitler's personal standard diminished. In the last days of the war, particularly during the Battle of Berlin in 1945, the flag was a symbol of a regime in its death throes. Displayed in the Führerbunker, Hitler's underground bunker in Berlin, it represented not the might of a powerful leader, but the desperate end of a dictator's rule. Mystical marks of power. The Nazi regime's appropriation of runic symbols. The adoption of ancient runic symbols by the Nazi regime represents a fascinating and troubling aspect of their quest to create a potent and evocative iconography. Runes, ancient alphabetic symbols used by Germanic tribes long before the adoption of the Latin alphabet, were appropriated by the Nazis in their efforts to establish a connection with an idealized Aryan past. This reimagining of runic symbols served to bolster Nazi ideology, lending an air of ancient mystique and supposed historical legitimacy to their cause. The most notorious of these symbols is the SS runes, emblematic of the Schutzstaffel SS, Hitler's elite paramilitary force. The SS runes were adapted from the Armanen runes, a set of symbols reinvented in the 19th century by Austrian mysticist Guido von List. List's interpretation of the runes was largely his invention, yet the Nazis adopted them, attracted by their purported ancient Germanic roots. The SS runes consisted of two Sig runes, representing victory, side by side. This emblem became synonymous with some of the most feared and reviled aspects of the Nazi regime. Another significant rune used by the Nazis was the Lebensrune, or life rune, symbolizing birth and life. This rune was used by the Lebensborn program, an initiative aimed at increasing the Aryan birth rate. In stark contrast, the Totenrune, or death rune, resembling an upside-down life rune, was used to mark gravestones of SS soldiers. The use of these runes in such contexts underscores the Nazi regime's preoccupation with life, death, and their racial ideologies. The Hakenkreuz, more commonly known as the swastika, is another ancient symbol that the Nazis adopted and perverted. Originally a symbol of good fortune and well-being in many cultures, the Nazis rotated and angled it, making it a central element of their party emblem. The transformation of the swastika into a symbol of hate and oppression is one of the most drastic examples of the Nazi regime's manipulation of ancient symbols. The Nazi regime's interest in runes was intertwined with their fascination with the occult. Heinrich Himmler, a key proponent of this ideology, saw runes as a link to the mystical Aryan past. He spearheaded the creation of the Ahnenerbe in 1935, an organization tasked with researching the ancestral heritage of the Aryan race. This organization conducted numerous expeditions, including to Tibet in 1938, seeking to find the origins of the Aryan race. Youth and civic organizations under the Nazi regime also adopted runes. The Hitler Youth, for instance, used the Tyr rune, symbolizing the war god in Norse mythology, as part of their insignia. This was meant to instill values of martial valor and loyalty in German youth. The Tyr rune was a common sight on uniforms and propaganda materials aimed at the younger generation. The Blutfahne, a symbol of Nazi martyrdom and power. The Blutfahne, or the blood flag, is a symbol steeped in the tumultuous history of the Nazi Party, its origins rooted in a pivotal and violent episode. On November 9, 1923, during the Beer Hall Putsch in Munich, a defining coup attempt led by Adolf Hitler, the Blutfahne gained its notorious status. Carried by Heinrich Trambauer, the flag was reportedly stained with the blood of the Nazi comrades who fell during the police confrontation. The failure of this coup, which resulted in the deaths of 16 party members, paradoxically marked a significant moment for the Nazi movement, turning the flag into a revered relic, symbolizing martyrdom and commitment to the cause. Following the Beer Hall Putsch, the Blutfahne was entrusted to Jakob Grimminger, a member of the SS who became its official bearer. The flag was used in numerous Nazi ceremonies, particularly those involving the swearing in of new members and the consecration of new flags. During these ceremonies, the Blutfahne was used to touch other flags, supposedly transferring its symbolic power and the blood of the Nazi martyrs to them. The use of the Blutfahne was meticulously choreographed and laden with symbolism. It was most prominently featured at the annual Nuremberg rallies, where it was paraded with great reverence. The sight of the Blutfahne, carried amidst columns of Nazi party members, was a powerful image that was designed to evoke a sense of awe, unity, and allegiance to the party and its cause. Beyond its physical presence, the Blutfahne held a deep ideological significance within Nazi mythology. It was more than a memento of those who died in the putsch. It was a sacred totem embodying the party's narrative of sacrifice, struggle, and the supposed invincibility of its cause. The flag's presence in ceremonies and rallies was not just for commemoration, but as a palpable symbol of the unbroken spirit of the Nazi movement. Post-World War II, the fate of the Blutfahne became a matter of speculation and mystery. Its last recorded public appearance was in 1944, and its subsequent disappearance after the fall of Nazi Germany has fueled various theories. Some speculate it was destroyed to prevent it from becoming a symbol of resistance for remaining Nazi sympathizers, while others believe it was hidden away, its location a secret known only to a few. Emblems of valor and ideology, decoding Nazi military decorations. The military decorations and awards of the Nazi regime were not mere accolades. They were powerful symbols, carefully crafted to convey ideology, valor, and loyalty. Each medal, badge, and insignia carried its unique meaning, steeped in the regime's values and vision. At the heart of Nazi military decorations was the Iron Cross, an emblem with deep historical roots in Germany. Originally established by King Friedrich Wilhelm III of Prussia in 1813, the Iron Cross was reconstituted by Adolf Hitler in 1939. It became a symbol of bravery and was awarded to soldiers for acts of heroism. Unlike its earlier iterations, the Nazi version of the Iron Cross featured a swastika at its center, embedding the party's ideology into this storied military decoration. The Knight's Cross of the Iron Cross, introduced in 1939, was an extension of this decoration, awarded for extraordinary valor beyond the call of duty. Notable recipients like fighter pilot Erich Hartmann, who was credited with the highest number of aerial victories in history, underscored its prestige. Another significant award was the German Cross, established in 1941. It was an octagonal star featuring a swastika surrounded by a wreath, blending the military valor symbolized by the Iron Cross with the Nazi Party's emblem. This decoration was created to bridge the gap between the Iron Cross First Class and the higher Knight's Cross, highlighting the regime's emphasis on a structured hierarchy of honor. The SS, Hitler's elite paramilitary force, had its unique decorations, such as the SS Honor Ring and the SS Honor Sword. The SS Honor Ring, or Totenkopf ring, was decorated with Nazi symbols, including the skull and crossbones, Totenkopf, and the runic symbols of the SS. Bestowed by Heinrich Himmler, the ring was not only a decoration, but a symbol of personal allegiance to Hitler and the SS ideology. The Honor Sword, similarly, was a ceremonial weapon awarded to SS officers, etched with symbols and mottos, embodying the SS's role as the ideological vanguard of the Nazi regime. For the Luftwaffe, or Air Force, a range of distinctive awards existed, like the Luftwaffe Pilot's Badge and the Combined Pilot Observer Badge. These awards, featuring eagles and swastikas, were worn with pride by pilots and crew, symbolizing their skill and dedication to the aerial war effort. The Nazi regime also instituted awards for non-combat achievements, reflecting their broader societal ideals. The Mother's Cross, introduced in 1938, was awarded in 3 classes, gold, silver and bronze, to women based on the number of children they bore. This decoration was part of the regime's effort to encourage racially pure German women to produce more offspring, reflecting the Nazi obsession with racial purity and demographic expansion. In the aftermath of World War II, the use and display of these decorations became a contentious issue. Many awards were prohibited in post-war Germany, their symbols inextricably linked to the atrocities of the Nazi regime. Today, they are primarily seen in museums and private collections, where they serve as reminders of a dark past. Monuments of Might, the architectural language of Nazi propaganda. The architecture of Nazi Germany, under the direction of Adolf Hitler and his chief architect Albert Speer, was a deliberate exercise in symbolism and power projection. Hitler's architectural vision was a key facet of his propaganda machine, utilizing grand-scale and classical design to convey the might and permanence of the Nazi regime. Adolf Hitler's artistic background heavily influenced his architectural ambitions. Upon assuming power in 1933, he sought to transform the architectural landscape of Germany to reflect the grandeur of the Third Reich. Albert Speer, appointed in 1934, was a pivotal figure in bringing Hitler's vision to life. Speer's designs were heavily influenced by neoclassical architecture, embodying a sense of timelessness and power. This architectural style was intended to convey the message of a strong, enduring Reich, drawing inspiration from the Roman Empire, which Hitler admired for its scale and longevity. The most grandiose of these plans was the transformation of Berlin into Germania. This colossal project, envisioned before the outbreak of World War II, included plans for vast boulevards and massive structures, such as the Great Hall or Volkshalle, designed to hold 180,000 people. Although the war halted these plans, the partial construction of the flak towers, giant air defense towers that doubled as bomb shelters, illustrated the regime's penchant for colossal, intimidating structures. Nazi architecture was replete with symbolic motifs such as swastikas, eagles, and SS runes, which were used to perpetuate Nazi ideology. The Nuremberg rally grounds, the site of the party's annual rallies, exemplified this integration of symbolism and architecture. The Zeppelin Field, with its vast grandstand and swastika emblazoned backdrop, was a stark illustration of how architecture served as a setting for the theatrical displays of Nazi power. The regime's focus wasn't limited to monumental projects, but extended to buildings with practical purposes, layered with ideological symbolism. The Prora Resort on Rügen Island, a part of the Strength Through Joy program, was a massive beach resort meant for German workers, stretching over 4.5 kilometers with a stark, uniform design. It represented the Nazi ideals of community and uniformity, overshadowing individuality. Military and educational facilities also reflected the Nazi architectural ethos. The Ordensburg Krosinsee, designed as a training ground for Nazi officers, echoed medieval Germanic fortresses, symbolizing a connection to a glorified martial past and instilling a sense of racial and historical pride in its trainees. Post-World War II, many of these structures faced demolition or repurposing in an effort to erase the physical legacies of the Nazi regime. However, some, like the Olympic Stadium in Berlin, still exist. Built for the 1936 Olympics, it remains a complex symbol of Nazi architecture, blending historical grandeur with dark political undertones. Shadows and light, the dichotomy of art in Nazi Germany. Art in Nazi Germany was a realm of sharp contrasts, where the power of visual expression was harnessed for propaganda and ideological conformity. Under Adolf Hitler's regime, art became a crucial instrument for promoting Nazi ideals and suppressing dissenting cultural voices. This period in art history is marked by a stark divide between what the regime deemed acceptable and degenerate art. Adolf Hitler, an unsuccessful artist in his youth, held strong opinions on art, which significantly influenced Nazi policies. He envisioned art as a tool to glorify the Aryan race and promote the ideals of National Socialism. In 1937, the Great German Art Exhibition was inaugurated, held in the House of German Art in Munich, showcasing works that Hitler approved of, art that celebrated the idealized Aryan physique, traditional Germanic values, and rural life. This exhibition was held annually until 1944 and featured artists like Arno Breker and Josef Thorak, whose sculptures like Die Partei and Die Wehrmacht embodied the Nazi ideal of classical beauty and heroic realism. In stark contrast to the accepted art, the Nazis launched a campaign against what they termed entartete Kunst, or degenerate art. This campaign targeted modernist movements such as Expressionism, Dadaism, and Surrealism, which the Nazis viewed as an affront to their ideals. Artists like Marc Chagall, Wassily Kandinsky, and Paul Klee were denounced, and their works were removed from German museums. In July 1937, the Degenerate Art Exhibition was held in Munich, displaying over 650 confiscated artworks in a chaotic and derisive manner. Notably, Kandinsky's Composition X and Chagall's The Soldier Drinks were among the ridiculed works, illustrating the regime's disdain for modernist expressions. This exhibition aimed to incite public revulsion against modern art, and it drew over 2 million visitors in its first 6 months. The Reichskulturkammer, Reich Chamber of Culture, established in 1933 and headed by Joseph Goebbels, was responsible for controlling all aspects of cultural life. Under its purview, artists had to register and demonstrate that their work aligned with Nazi ideology. Non-compliant artists faced severe repercussions, leading to the exile of many, like Max Ernst and George Gross, or persecution of those who remained. Nazi propaganda art was another crucial aspect of the regime's use of art. Artists were commissioned to produce works that celebrated Hitler and the achievements of the Third Reich. This included grandiose paintings, sculptures, and even architecture, all designed to elicit awe and admiration for the Führer and his party. The use of art as propaganda extended to film as well, with filmmakers like Leni Riefenstahl producing works like Triumph of the Will, a powerful and chilling portrayal of the 1934 Nuremberg rally. Despite the oppressive environment, some artists resisted through their work, often covertly. These resistance artists, such as John Hartfield, with his anti-fascist photomontages, risked their safety to create art that critiqued and defied Nazi ideology. Their works, though less known during the regime, have been recognized post-World War II for their courageous stand against tyranny. The end of the Nazi regime in 1945 marked a liberation for the art world. Many confiscated, degenerate artworks were recovered, like Ernst Ludwig Kirchner's Street Berlin, and artists previously banned could now freely express themselves. This era in art history stands as a poignant reminder of art's enduring capacity to reflect and challenge the socio-political climate of its time. Mysticism in the shadows, unveiling the occult influence in the Nazi regime. The nexus between occultism and the Nazi regime represents a darkly intriguing aspect of history. While Adolf Hitler publicly maintained a stance of skepticism towards occultism, labeling it as nonsense in his speeches, his regime, particularly certain influential figures, showed a profound interest in esoteric practices and beliefs. This paradoxical relationship with the mystical world reveals the complex undercurrents of Nazi ideology. Hitler's personal ambivalence towards the occult did not deter other top Nazi officials from pursuing their esoteric interests. Notably, Heinrich Himmler, the architect of the SS, was deeply fascinated by mysticism. Himmler's obsession with the occult led him to romanticize the Teutonic Knights and envisage the SS as a reincarnation of this medieval order. He transformed the Wewelsburg Castle into a pseudo-religious sanctuary for the SS, where rituals and ideological education sessions were conducted. The castle's north tower was redesigned to include a circular room with a swastika at the center, intended as a sacred space for SS leaders. The Ahnenerbe, founded by Himmler and Hermann Wirth in 1935, was perhaps the most explicit manifestation of the Nazi regime's flirtation with the occult. This institute, dedicated to researching the ancestral heritage of the Germanic race, organized expeditions to places like Tibet, the Baltic and Scandinavia in 1938. These missions, albeit under the guise of scientific research, were often driven by esoteric agendas, such as the quest for the mythical Aryan origin or supernatural artifacts. Occult symbols were prominently integrated into Nazi iconography. The swastika, an ancient symbol used across various cultures, was appropriated and turned into a symbol of Aryan identity and German nationalist pride. Similarly, the SS runes, including the Sig rune symbolizing victory, were derived from ancient Germanic runes, reinterpreted to fit the Nazi narrative. These symbols, deeply embedded in the regime's insignia, underscored the mystical veneer that the Nazis sought to project. Astrology and other forms of occultism also found their way into the higher echelons of Nazi decision-making. Karl Ernst Kraft, a Swiss astrologer, became known for his predictions and was enlisted by the regime for astrological forecasts, which at times influenced military decisions. However, this reliance on astrology was a double-edged sword, leading to decisions that lacked practical grounding, especially evident in the later stages of the war. The relationship between the Nazi regime and occultism was marked by contradiction and variability. While Himmler and other leaders delved deep into mysticism, others within the party, like Rudolf Hess, were more skeptical. This disparity led to a complex and often disjointed engagement with occult practices and beliefs, reflecting the ideological dissonance within the Nazi hierarchy. Post-war, the fascination with the Nazi regime's occult connections has led to a plethora of speculative theories and fictional narratives. Books like The Morning of the Magicians, 1960, by Louis Pauwels and Jacques Bergier, popularized the notion of Nazi occultism, blending historical facts with speculative fiction, further entrenching this aspect of Nazism in popular culture. The art of persuasion, mastering propaganda in the Nazi regime. The Nazi regime's use of propaganda was a crucial component in their rise to power and maintenance of control. Masterfully orchestrated by Joseph Goebbels, the Minister of Propaganda, the Nazis employed a range of techniques to infuse their ideology into the fabric of everyday life. This campaign was multifaceted, utilizing symbols, posters, film, and other media to create a pervasive influence that was both subtle and overwhelming. Posters were a cornerstone of Nazi propaganda efforts, designed to be visually striking and emotionally evocative. They were used to convey a range of messages, from the glorification of Hitler and the party to the demonization of enemies, including Jews and communists. The 2000 Years of German Culture poster juxtaposed a robust Aryan family against the backdrop of what the Nazis considered degenerate art, reinforcing the regime's cultural ideals. Another infamous example was the poster for the Eternal Jew exhibition in 1937, which depicted Jews in a derogatory manner to fuel anti-Semitic sentiment. These posters were strategically placed in high-traffic areas to ensure they reached a broad audience. Film was perhaps one of the most potent mediums used by the Nazis for propaganda. The regime recognized early on the power of cinema to reach a vast audience and shape public perception. Films such as Triumph of the Will, 1935, by Leni Riefenstahl, a documentary of the 1934 Nuremberg Rally, and The Eternal Jew, 1940, a blatantly anti-Semitic film, were designed to promote the Nazi ideology and its racial policies. Triumph of the Will was particularly notable for its innovative cinematography and use of music, which glorified Hitler and the Nazi Party in an almost mythic manner. The Nazis also used radio broadcasting as a means to disseminate their message. Cheap radios, known as the Volksempfänger or People's Receiver, were manufactured to ensure that Nazi broadcasts could reach as wide an audience as possible. Hitler's speeches were broadcast live, and programs were carefully curated to promote Nazi ideals and policies. In their quest to control cultural expression, the Nazis resorted to public book burnings, with the first and most famous occurring on May 10, 1933. Books by authors like Bertolt Brecht and Thomas Mann were burned, symbolizing the regime's rejection of intellectual dissent. Education was also targeted, with school curricula and textbooks revamped to align with Nazi ideology, effectively molding the minds of young Germans. The Nazi regime's propaganda was relentless and pervasive, penetrating every aspect of German life. It was a key factor in securing and maintaining their grip on power, manipulating public opinion and marginalizing their enemies. The efficiency and scale of their propaganda machine were unprecedented, and its impact was felt not only in Germany, but across the world. Currency and stamps, the subtle mediums of Nazi ideology. The Nazi regime's proficiency in propaganda extended to the everyday essentials of German life, notably currency and postage stamps, transforming them into tools for disseminating their ideology and symbols. Under Nazi rule, the Reichsmark, the existing currency of the Weimar Republic, was redesigned to reflect the new regime's aesthetics. Banknotes issued in the early 1930s began featuring symbols like the eagle and swastika, subtly integrating the Nazi Party's insignia into the economy. Coins minted after 1933, such as the widely circulated 5 Reichsmark coin introduced in 1934, displayed the swastika and the Potsdam Garrison Church, symbolically linking the Nazi regime to German history and legitimacy. The realm of postage stamps also became a canvas for Nazi propaganda. The 1934 series of stamps featured Adolf Hitler's portrait, signifying his omnipresence in the nation's life. Another significant series was the 1936 stamps commemorating the Berlin Summer Olympics, portraying Germany's revival under Nazi rule. These stamps were not only used domestically, but also served as a tool for international propaganda, showcasing the regime's achievements to the world. Commemorative stamps and coins were also used to celebrate significant Nazi milestones. Stamps issued in 1938 glorified the Anschluss, the annexation of Austria, symbolizing the unification of German-speaking peoples under the Nazi regime. Commemorative coins celebrated various regime achievements, weaving the narrative of Nazi triumphs into the fabric of German currency. Post-World War II, the Allied powers initiated a swift monetary reform. The Reichsmark was replaced by new currencies like the Deutsche Mark in West Germany and the East German Mark in the Soviet zone. This change was part of the broader denazification effort, aimed at eradicating symbols and reminders of the Nazi regime from public life. Erasing hatred, navigating the legacy of Nazi symbols in the post-war world. Following the devastation of World War II, the global community embarked on a legal and moral crusade against Nazi symbols, a campaign marked by varying degrees of severity and methodology across nations, reflecting a shared resolve to confront a dark past. In Germany, the legal framework against Nazi symbols was established with rigor and urgency. The Allied Control Council's directive, Number 30 in 1946, was a foundational step in this process, leading to the incorporation of these prohibitions into the German Criminal Code, specifically under Section 86A of the Strafgesetzbuch. This law made the public display, distribution, or production of Nazi symbols illegal, subject to fines and imprisonment. As of 2021, legal actions under this code remain frequent, underscoring Germany's ongoing commitment to eradicating the symbols of its dark past. Austria's approach mirrored Germany's in its stringency. The Verbotsgesetz, 1947, not only outlawed the Nazi Party, but also criminalized efforts to revive or continue its ideology. The display of Nazi symbols in Austria is a criminal offense, a stance reflecting the country's introspective journey regarding its own complicity during the Nazi era. In other parts of Europe, the legal landscape varied. France's laws against hate speech, encompassing war memorabilia, indirectly address Nazi symbolism. The UK does not have explicit laws banning these symbols, but their use can fall under laws against inciting racial hatred, as seen in various legal cases where individuals displaying these symbols were prosecuted. Poland, deeply scarred by the Nazi occupation, has strict laws against Nazi symbols, with exceptions for educational or artistic purposes, as evident in the country's vigilant approach to Holocaust education. The United States presents a contrasting scenario due to its robust free speech protections under the First Amendment. While the display of Nazi symbols is legally permissible, it often triggers significant social backlash, as seen in numerous protests against neo-Nazi groups. Conversely, in Israel, where the Holocaust's legacy is deeply ingrained in the national psyche, laws stringently prohibit Nazi symbols. The prohibition of Nazi and Nazi collaborative organizations. Law of 1950 exemplifies Israel's zero-tolerance policy towards these emblems. The advent of the digital age has complicated the regulation of Nazi symbols. Social media platforms and internet forums often grapple with the challenge of moderating content that includes these symbols, balancing between freedom of speech and preventing hate speech. This has led to an ongoing debate and varied policies among tech companies regarding content moderation. Discussions around the prohibition of Nazi symbols often delve into the dichotomy between eradicating hate and preserving historical memory. Critics of these laws argue that they may inadvertently whitewash history, while proponents assert that such measures are vital to counter the resurgence of fascist ideologies and honor the millions of Holocaust victims. Echoes of the past, the contemporary landscape of Nazi symbolism. In the decades following World War II, the symbols of Nazi Germany have continued to resonate, albeit in contexts far removed from their original use. Today, these symbols are entangled in a complex web of neo-Nazi ideology, pop culture references, and heated controversies, reflecting the enduring shadow of the Nazi legacy. The most blatant and disturbing use of Nazi symbols in modern times is by neo-Nazi and white supremacist groups. These factions, spread across various countries, adopt swastikas, SS bolts, and other Nazi emblems to promote ideologies of hate and racial supremacy. For instance, in the United States, groups like the National Socialist Movement continue to use the swastika as a symbol of their belief in white racial superiority. In Europe, despite stringent laws against Nazi symbols, underground neo-Nazi groups use these emblems as a tool of defiance and identity. The swastika and other symbols are often subtly altered to circumvent legal restrictions while still conveying their hateful message. In the realm of popular culture, the depiction of Nazi symbols often aims to symbolize evil or historical accuracy. Movies like Indiana Jones, Raiders of the Lost Ark, 1981, and video games such as Wolfenstein: The New Order, 2014, use these symbols to portray Nazis as quintessential villains. While these portrayals are generally accepted as part of storytelling, they sometimes ignite debates about the potential trivialization of the Nazis' real-world atrocities. The 2017 controversy over the use of Nazi imagery in the marketing of the video game Call of Duty Wandertag 2 is a recent example of how even intended historical accuracy can stir up sensitivities. The usage of Nazi symbols in educational and historical contexts walks a fine line between instruction and inadvertent glorification. Reenactments of World War II battles or museum exhibits that feature these symbols while educational, can sometimes be perceived as insensitive or sensational. The debate over a 2019 Holocaust exhibit in the Ukraine that featured mannequins in Nazi uniforms exemplifies the complexities involved in portraying this dark chapter of history. Legally, the handling of Nazi symbols varies significantly across countries. In Germany, displaying Nazi symbols can result in fines or imprisonment, a policy rooted in the country's denazification efforts post-1945. In contrast, the United States' protection of free speech under the First Amendment allows for the legal display of these symbols, leading to ongoing debates about hate speech versus freedom of expression. The 2017 Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville, Virginia, where neo-Nazis displayed swastikas, reignited discussions on this issue in the US. The advent of the internet and social media has further complicated the issue. Online platforms often serve as echo chambers for extremist ideologies, with neo-Nazi groups using them to spread propaganda. The moderation policies of companies like Facebook and Twitter regarding Nazi symbols are continually evolving, trying to balance the fine line between freedom of expression and the promotion of hate speech. As we close this exploration into the history and the modern-day resonance of Nazi symbols, it's crucial to remember the origins of these icons that once symbolized the darkest chapters of human history. These symbols, once a nightmarish reality, now serve as a stark reminder of the past. As Edmund Burke, "The only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing." This poignant reminder serves as a call to action, emphasizing the importance of vigilance and responsibility in the face of ideologies that once threatened to engulf the world in darkness. By understanding their origins, evolution, and the horrors they came to represent, we ensure that the lessons of history remain alive, guiding us towards a future of tolerance, understanding, and peace.